I encourage everyone to make notes of what they are learning throughout the classes. And at the end of the class, or end of the chapter rather, you can share your realizations. So I'll repeat the questions once we are towards the end of the chapter. So chapter 2 is what we are going to discuss today. Contents of Gita summarized. And this chapter will be covered over 3 sessions. So this is one of the longest chapters, relatively in terms of number of verses that it has. So that's why it is divided across 3 chapters, sorry, 3 sessions. So here's an outline, and the 3 parts that I intend to cover in the next 3 sessions can at high level be divided into these 3 parts. So as you can recall, last chapter 1, Arjuna, having assembled on the battlefield, he looks at his relatives on the uh, opposite side, especially his grandfather and teacher, and he does not want to fight, right? He is feeling, um, completely dejected. He's very morose. He's confused in terms of what his duties are. As a Kshatriya, he knows he's supposed to fight, but at the same time, we saw some of the arguments that he provided last time. Can anyone summarize what were some of the reasons why he didn't want to fight? Anyone? Okay. I see Sukriti. Sukriti, can you give me one reason? And then we'll pass it on to others.
One of the reasons was that there will be chaos and division.
Chaos and division. Can you say it a little bit more specific in terms of the reason that we covered in the class? Right? Maybe you are
There wouldn't be enough sacrifices. Um, s- uh, so then they were kind of stealing stuff without giving anything back, and then
Yeah, so if you want to, yeah, you're touching the concept, but if you want to elaborate a little bit how exactly that would happen is that all the men would die in the war, right? Uh, while fighting, and the women will be left unprotected. And then unprotected women might be exploited. There would be unwanted children, and these children, in absence of their fathers, will not be raised in the family culture and the family culture tradition, and so they won't have any motivation or even knowledge or the means to perform those sacrifices, right? So that was definitely one of the reasons. Anyone else? Let's see, Sejal, you wanted to summarize?
So like Arjuna didn't want to fight because he was fighting his like relatives and cousins and like family members.
Yeah, so the argument he provided is that, well, my grandfather, my teacher especially, they're worthy of respect. I would not even dare to speak speak against them, what to mention about shooting arrows. So that was one of the reasons, right? And there was one more reason, Ananya.
He said that if they win, he will not have anyone to celebrate with.
Exactly, yeah, that was a good reason. So these were the reasons why I did not want to fight, right? And so in the chapter 2 begins, Krishna has not spoken yet, but now Krishna will speak. And so the chapter 2 begins with Krishna providing reasons or arguments against Arjuna's decision that he doesn't want to fight. So the 3 main themes that he talks about, well, first, what today's discussion part 1 would be, Krishna telling Arjuna that, uh, the soul is different from the body, and soul can never be slain, right? So if you're worried about killing your teacher and grandfather, you should not worry, because you're thinking of them as this body, right? But they are not body, they are souls, and souls can never be killed. right? So why you have to, your lamentation is not necessary, it's unworthy. So that's the first theme. We're going to talk about that today. The second theme, which we'll talk in the next class, is Arjuna. He's asking Arjuna that you should fight. So that is one first reason is, well, you should not worry about killing them because they cannot be killed. The second reason is, you should perform your duties as a Kshatriya. And performing your duty is going to be beneficial to you in this life and the next. And the third theme that he covers is basically, it's the highest principle. Even beyond performing one's duty, is that the results of your duty, your work, when you offer it as a sacrifice to Krishna in devotional, that's called devotional service or bhakti. So when one engages in all activities, the prescribed activities, with the mood of devotion to Krishna, that's the highest principle. So there is a gradual progression of the arguments that Krishna provides. So we'll cover these three themes over next three classes. So we'll start with the first theme today, which is he's asking Arjuna, well, fight. The soul can never be slain. So in the first 9 verses of chapter 2, there are some of the main sub-themes that appear, where first of all, Krishna begins this chapter by saying that, well, I'm surprised, Arjuna, that you are affected by these impurities. As a Kshatriya, you should know this better. It's not the first time you're fighting the war, and you're systematically trained in it. You're definitely aware of the dharma and the principles. So how come you are bewildered? You sound very intelligent in your arguments, because see, all the arguments that Arjuna presented were very intelligent. But Krishna is indirectly telling him, well, in reality, you are like a fool. It's your arguments, they don't make much sense, and he's going to elaborate on that. Arjuna then responds by saying that, he said he's still insisting on the same point, where he says, well, I would rather prefer to beg than to kill my teacher and my grandfather. They are worthy of my respect. And he says, not only my grandfather and teacher, they are definitely worthy of respect. But even beyond that, I have to kill all my cousins and all my relatives. So any victory that we get will be tainted by blood of my kinsman. Being bewildered and dejected, now he is approaching Krishna as a disciple. So far, Krishna and Arjuna, we talked about, they were of same age. Did you know that? Krishna and Arjuna, they were cousins, and they were good friends because they were of the same age. Now, Yudhishthir and Bhima, they were older than Arjuna. And Krishna was the same as Arjuna, so they were older than Krishna as well. And Nakula and Sahadev, the other two Pandavas, they were younger than Arjuna and younger than Krishna. So Krishna and Arjuna had a very special bonding. They were not only cousins, but they were really good friends. And while growing up, they were sometimes would play. They will jokingly fight. They might eat lunch from the same plate, and they're very close bonding. And Arjuna is essentially telling Krishna that, I know we have a special relationship, but now I'm not asking you to help me as a friend. I want you to help me how to overcome this confusion. But I'm not asking you as a friend. I'm approaching you as a disciple, as a student. I want you to instruct me. So what do you think? Why is Arjuna saying like that? Anyone wants to try? Why is Arjuna making this point? He could have asked as a friend also, right? Sometimes you have some problem, you might approach your friend and ask your friend to help. Anyone wants to attempt? Again, don't worry about getting it wrong or anything. Let's make it a little interesting. Somebody has not answered. Let's try with Tulsi Priya. Go ahead.
Because he wanted the proper guidance.
He wanted proper guidance. And why do you think Krishna would not have given him proper guidance if he had approached him as a friend?
Because if it's approaching him as a disciple, then he will take greater respect in Krishna's words.
He would get what?
He would take greater respect in Krishna's words than he would as a friend, and he would take them more closely to heart.
Yeah, that is his own consciousness. That's right. But what do you think about Krishna? What is it trying to convey to Krishna? What you mentioned is about Arjuna's own consciousness, how he should approach. But he is also giving, some indication to Krishna by saying that I'm approaching you as a disciple, so that Krishna reacts in a certain way. What is that way he wants Krishna to react?
Don't treat me as a friend.
Who is this, Ananya?
No, this is Rishikesh.
Rishikesh, yeah. Don't treat me as a friend. Okay, I think you are going in the right direction. Can you elaborate a little bit more?
He wants to teach. He wants Krishna to teach Arjuna. He wants to take him strictly and also teach him properly instead of a friend and not just joking around and fooling around.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So what happens is sometimes, you might ask something, because friends might ask, but, so there's a great, in a friendship, you might ask a question here and there. But when you're really serious, this indicates some seriousness, saying that, oh, Krishna, take me seriously. I'm not just asking you jokingly or, just lightly. Of course, he's not asking jokingly because he's depressed. But he's conveying this message that he's really serious and he really wants to learn from him. That's also an important lesson for us. And so Krishna could have spoken this Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna a long time back, right? Krishna knew Arjuna for a long time. Why did Krishna did not give this knowledge, this profound knowledge which is in Bhagavad Gita? Krishna never presented this to Arjuna before, right? Why do you think he never presented? Like if you are a teacher, why would you, and you have something very special, right? Something that is very valuable, it's very important, but maybe you never shared it to your friend. What could be some of the reasons why you would have never shared it to your friend? Someone who has not answered. Ashwin. Ashwin, I saw your hand raised.
It wouldn't really make, because I said really wouldn't matter, because otherwise, like, they're just friends. He doesn't really need the knowledge at the moment because.
Okay, let's see what somebody else has to say. You're kind of touching it. Let's see. Ananya, did you get a chance? Okay, I'll let you answer. Ananya, you want to say something?
Well, after Ananya, can I say?
Who is this?
Piyush.
Piyush, I'll give you a chance. Ananya? Okay, Piyush, over to you.
So, if Krishna gave this knowledge to Arjuna a long time ago, first of all, we won't even know about it much because Dhritarashtra's minister saw this because he had mystic powers. So if Arjuna already knew, then he wouldn't really. Then the knowledge wouldn't come to him.
You're saying others would not have benefited, okay?
Yeah,
From an Arjuna's perspective, let's not worry about others. Like, Krishna could have, wanted to give this knowledge to Arjuna, but why he waited for this time? Let's try. Who did not get a chance? Sahana, I thought I saw your hand raised. Let's go to Ananya. Ananya, you back? You were mute earlier. Okay, Sukriti.
I already answered.
Okay.
I already got a chance.
Sukriti, you want to say something?
Maybe because Arjuna wouldn't take it seriously yet because he didn't know how serious the situation was until he was actually in the situation.
Yeah, that's the point, right? So, sometimes, unless people really have a need for something, they are like, okay, whatever, he's telling me, they might not take seriously. I don't know why he's telling me all this. He might just come out of blue for them. And It's also moral for us that do not give unsolicited advice to anyone, right? Of course, devotees of the Lord are very merciful and they go out and share Krishna's message to everyone. But you have to see to what extent and to how much you can share with others, because if somebody is not really ready, and if you try to present something or teach them, then they might not respond to it in the way or the fashion that you want, and they might even insult you, or they might get offended. So that's also a lesson where everything, the best time to tell someone when somebody is really ready, right, to receive that knowledge. So yeah, Krishna waited, right? So now Arjuna really wants to know, and so he's teaching him. So anyway, Arjuna approaches Krishna as a disciple, but having said that, I'm approaching you as a disciple, please instruct me. He still concludes by saying that, still the instruction hasn't begun, but he's still in that frame where he has already made his call that I don't want to fight. But he, somewhere in the back of his heart, he feels that, well, this is not probably the right thing to do. But he cannot really justify or cannot overcome, because he is convinced that he should not fight. And so that's what he's asking Krishna to help him. And so he approaches him as a disciple, but at the same time, he's not approaching from a neutral position. He's like, you know what, I'm not sure what I should do. I should fight or I should not fight. I'm not sure. You tell me, whatever you tell, I'll accept it and do it. Of course, Arjuna is still willing to accept whatever Krishna will tell him, but he's not still approaching from a neutral position. I don't know whether it's A or B, and help me decide. He's more like, I am bent upon doing B, which is I don't want to fight, but I feel that maybe this is not the right thing. Can you help me? Right. So that was more like his position. Piyush, did you have a question? I see your hand raised in case you have a question. Okay, is this clear? This part?
I do not have.
Anyone has any questions so far? Okay, so we'll move on. So the theme of the sub-theme in today's discussion is Krishna's main argument is, well, you're worried about the death of your relatives, your grandfather, teacher, but the fact is that we are not this body, neither they are the body. They are living souls. And the death that, anytime we talk about birth or death, the birth and death only applies to the body. The birth and death does not apply to the soul. Soul is eternal. So that's the point Krishna is trying to make. So he's telling Arjuna that, those who are really learned in knowledge, those who have proper knowledge, those who have proper perspective, they don't lament. They don't lament for anyone, either someone who is living or somebody is dead. So why is that? How is that, you don't lament for the living? Suppose you go and see someone is really suffering. So maybe you watch news and somebody is in Syria where war is going on, or somebody is starving in some part of Africa, or even in America. Some hunger is a problem everywhere, and a compassionate person will have some compassion for whoever's suffering. They are living, but maybe they are not, but here Krishna is saying that those who are learned, they do not lament for those who are living. Does it mean that, nor the dead, does it mean that you become stone-hearted? You don't have any compassion for, those people who are suffering? What do you think Krishna is trying to say over here? Why is Krishna saying that those who are learned, they don't lament? What if somebody, a great person who has done so much for the community, for the society, maybe your relative, he passes away, that person dies. And then should we not lament for it? Sukriti?
What does lament mean?
Lament means you're like, oh, why did this happen? I wish this, I wish that this never happened. So you're lamenting.
Prabhuji.
Okay, I see more hands raised. I see Kavya and Ria. I'll let you both speak. Kavya, you want to go ahead?
Prabhuji, my hand wasn't raised, but can you repeat the question again?
The question was, why is Krishna saying you should not lament for the living nor the dead?
Because we're not the body, we're the soul, so the soul can never die. And basically, when someone dies, the soul just goes to another body. And
but what if somebody is living? If somebody is hungry, I was saying, or somebody is living in a war-torn area, and they are suffering like anything. So when you hear about them, should you not feel compassionate for them? Is it what it is? Does that what it mean?
I don't think that's what it means. You should feel compassionate, but like, I really don't know. Okay, but I don't think Krishna is saying not to be compassionate.
But what does it mean? Like, hey, don't lament. It seems to me like he's saying, okay, they're suffering, whatever, right? Why you don't lament, worry about them. What do you have to say?
Yeah, so basically kind of what Kavya said, but the body does it well, it's temporary, and but I think you compassionate for people who have problems, but like when they die, you don't need to grieve so much because their body was going to die anyway, but their soul will just move on.
While they are living, even if you don't talk about the dead, let's see what Parth has to say.
You cannot change the future anyways if you lemon, because the future will happen anyhow. And even if you die, people leave their body, because if people don't die, this earth is gonna get more population.
Okay, but what about the living? Why I should not lament the living who are suffering? I see somebody on the road, a homeless person, maybe a veteran. He served the country, he fought, but now he does not have a living. He cannot even afford a meal. So I should not lament for them. I should be stone-hearted. What does this mean? Like, okay, Tulsi Priya.
You should not lament or be stone-hearted, but you should know that that was their own past karma.
Okay. So you're saying you should still express compassion, but then
yes, you can express compassion, but you should not be like
you should not be like overly compassionate.
You shouldn't try to help them like extra over, like.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're saying maybe I can give them some money or like, but then
no. The best thing to give them is prasadam.
Okay.
Because you don't know what they're gonna do with that money.
Right. Okay. Anyone else? Rishikesh, you want to say something? Somebody else wants to add anything to what was discussed? Yeah. So basically, when you see someone who is suffering, of course, karmic reactions are there, but our attitude is not like, hey, you know what, it's their karma, it's their problem. So it's not in that fashion that we kind of ignore them, but rather the laws of karma, they are not whimsical. They are not sadistic. You understand what is someone who is a sadistic? Sadistic means someone who he takes pleasure in suffering of others. So laws of karmas are not made from a sadistic intention, and they are meant for correcting. They are meant for correcting.
Prabhu?
Yeah.
I think so. What Krishna means here, I think, is so when he says to be compassionate, and but not like worry a lot about them, since even though their body, like, even though you see them die, they're like, their soul is actually not dead. So he's saying you should not be worried because their soul is still there and they can see what you're still doing and all, but it's just that the body is not there.
Yeah, that's a valid point. But what about the living, right? So that's what I was trying to explain. So, let's talk. He's saying you do not lament neither the living nor the dead. So you told me about the dead. Okay, body is dead, soul is still living. Okay, but he's saying, don't lament about the living. That might be difficult to digest. So the way to understand this is that, just like a parent sometimes chastises a child, and the child feels that this is a suffering for me, but the parent chastises not because parent gets some sadistic pleasure in chastising the child, but that the idea is that the child is corrected. So we are put into different situation to correct our perspective. Maybe we have a certain perspective about life, our attitude, and based on that perspective, we behaved in a certain way, which we thought was the right way to behave, right? But maybe that was not the proper way to behave. And so in order for us to reevaluate our perspective, we are put into a situation where we are experiencing something contrary to what our presumption was. And so we are now forced to reevaluate. So maybe that person in the past had a lot of money and charity. I'm just giving an example, right? I mean, it could be many other reasons, but they were miser. They never gave enough money to charity in others. They did not help others. And maybe they saw someone suffering and they thought, whatever, it's their karma, or, it's not my problem. And when they could have easily helped them, maybe they did not help them. Maybe they could have given food or prasadam, as Tulsi Priya mentioned, but they did not take the initiative. So we have this story, the month of Kartik is coming. Some of you might know the story of Mani Griva and Nal Kubera. They were the sons of Kubera, the treasurer of the Demigods. So as a treasurer, he had access to a lot of wealth. And as you see in this world, children of rich and famous, because they have access to so much wealth, they have access to so much sense gratification. And so they are so much intoxicated in sense gratification that they fail to offer proper respects or honor or compassion to others. And that's what happened when they insulted Narad Muni by being in an unclean state, even when he was personally present. Narad Muni cursed, because you have not experienced what it means to be pricked by a thorn, because you're so much engrossed in sense gratification, it is better that you experience that pain so that you can correct your perspective on the purpose of life. So he curses them to become trees, because they were naked actually at the time. They did not cover themselves. They were enjoying wine and women. So everyone is put into a situation according to that past karma, but it's not a sadistic reasoning that, they let them suffer. It's more that, it's for everyone to, we all have different misconceptions. We are put into different situations and troubles. So we are forced to reevaluate our position. And when a hungry person is forced to fast, that person gets the same benefit as someone who is fasting voluntarily. So voluntarily, no one might fast. I mean, there are very few people who are spiritually inclined would take up fasting. But somebody who is put into that situation is forced to fast, nevertheless gets all the benefits as if that person was voluntarily fasting. So it's actually purifying for them. So that's one way you can understand that why one should not lament for the living. Of course, one should have compassion. And so also that doesn't mean that I think, this person is going through purification because he's forced to fast. That's why I won't give any prasadam to this individual. So that is a wrong attitude. Then we get implicated in karma. So we should do our duty. We offer compassion, right? So what Krishna is specifically telling Arjuna is that those who are learned, they are focused on their duty and they see the reality. And they don't get so much affected by the pleasures and pains that they themselves might be experiencing or others might be experiencing. It doesn't mean that they are not compassionate, but it's not that they are overwhelmed by that situation. They see things as they are. And in that regard, he continues to say that, all these kings that you're lamenting about, it's not that they did not exist in the past. In their previous life also they had a body, right? And in future, if they die in this war, it's not that they will cease to exist. The soul will continue, persist, and it will acquire a new body, right? And he gives this example, what you see in this picture, as all of you also might have experienced, nowadays, because with digital media, all of you have access to your photos and videos from your childhood, and you might, open it up someday, and then you might see yourself when you were 6 months old, or 1 year, 2 years, 6 years, different ages, and you see that photo and you see those videos. Maybe there is semblance in terms of some features, some facial features, but you see that body has completely changed, right? The body is not the same. The body as a child that you had is very different, completely different from the body that you have right now. And in future, when we'll get old, we'll have a completely different body, right? So as you can see, the body is continuously changing, but you as a person, you are still the same person, right? Because you can relate to those experiences that you had in the childhood. And then you will be able to relate to the experiences that you will have in your old age, right? So that means you are not the body. The body has completely changed. Even according to science, over a period of 7 years, every single cell in your body completely changes. Every single cell. So every single cell means what? If you look at a body as a composition of different cells, that means none of the cells that you had 7 years ago are in your body right now. That means your body is completely different. But you as a person, you are still the same. That means you are different from the body. And now if you extrapolate, there is an extrapolation. Suppose I give you a sequence of numbers. Let me give you a sequence. Let's say 6, 8, 10, 12. What's the next number, Arush?
What? 14.
14. Okay. What's the number before? 6, 8, 10, 12. Number before 6. Let's see, Arisha. What's the number?
4.
4. Right. So what did you do over here? Right. Okay, can someone explain in words what did Arush and Arisha do? Let's give a chance to Ashika. What did this individual do? I just gave them a sequence of numbers, but they did something. They guessed what will be the next number, and they also guessed what will be the prior number. Ashika. How did they do it? Anyone else? Let's see. Piyush. Someone has raised the hand. Someone who is not answered can also answer. Samyukta. Can you explain what happened over here? Okay. Ria, you there? Ria, go ahead.
Here.
What was it? How did these two numbers were guessed?
Prabhuji, I think somebody else. No. I need more time to think, Prabhuji.
Sorry?
I need to think.
Okay. Somebody else wants to try? Tulsi Priya, go ahead.
It's like a system where, not a system, but it's like a pattern which follows, which consistently follows one another, adding 2
Sure.
from 6, and then from before that subtracting 2.
Yes, so that's what it's a valid method, right? You call it extrapolation, but you see a pattern, and looking at the pattern, you can predict the future, or you can also say what might have happened in the past. So similarly, you have the history or the pattern from the birth till the death of the body. And what is the pattern? The pattern is that body is changing, right? Continuously changing. Or is it changing once a year? Suppose Your parents, somebody sees you, Tulsi Priya, after 6 years, and they might say, "Wow, you're such a big girl now, right?" I remember you when you were small, like you were a child. But your parents, they never say you. Do your parents say, "Oh, your 10th birthday or 12th birthday," and then they might say, "Wow, you are so different than what you were yesterday." Like, does it happen? Like in the morning you wake up and you find that you have drastically changed? But definitely you have changed over a period of 6 years. So when did the change happen?
It happens kind of subtly over like time, very slowly.
Okay, so is it a specific moment that the change happens? Is it like every 6 months, every month?
It specifically happens in a time period. Every like in a
every hour or?
No, it depends. I don't know. I'm not sure.
Okay. Anyone has any idea? Like, when does the change happen? Like, when does your body grow? Like, is it like once every year and then you shoot up, or once every month, every week? Parth, you have an opinion? Let's try someone who is silent. Ditya. When do you think the body changes? You want to unmute yourself? Anika Patwa. When do you think the body grows?
Like it grows like if you compare yourself when you were 6 and how you are now, like you could see like maybe your hair grew longer.
Yeah, definitely changed. But when did the change happen? Does it happen like at the end of every year? So you have the same body for 1 year, and as soon as your birthday hits, you immediately shoot up, right? Is that how the growth happens? Or
I mean, you change like every day, like.
So it's once every day. Is it like 8 o'clock in the morning? So your same body for for 24 hours, and at a certain time, maybe midnight, or like you have that slight growth, or what happens?
Prabhuji?
Yeah.
I remember one thing that my doctor told me, that we grow when we sleep.
Okay.
So it depends.
Yeah, I mean, they say that generally your body, according to medical science, that maybe your body grows more during the night. But the scripture, they say it's changing every single moment. Just like if you watch a video, have you seen like a movie? If you watch a video, what happens? It's a frame. In 1 second, there are, say, 300 frames are changing. 300 pictures, say, for instance, which are, if you look, there's a very minute difference between each of those successive frames, right? Like a flip book. If you flip a book, have you seen a flip book? Like each page of the flip book is very similar to the next page. But when you flip it very fast, what happens? It appears like a motion, either a motion or a change. Like you might have seen a flip book with a picture of a tadpole that grows into a frog, right? From a small tadpole to a big frog. And on each page, there is one stage of the tadpole. The next stage of the tadpole is slightly, so 2 pages are not very different. But when you flip it in 1 second, then what happens is you see an entire transition happen within that time period. It's just like a movie. Movie is what? It's just a series of pictures. Say 300 pictures which are refreshed in just 1 second, right? Parth, yeah.
Science also proves that when you're bored, the time goes by feels so slowly for you. That's why you're kind of aging slower. But when you're actually happy or enjoying some time actually goes by so fast, and your aging also moves kind of fast.
Right. So there might be change in rate of aging, but the point is that the aging is happening every moment. So every moment your body is, in a way, it's in a way we are dying every moment. Every moment the body that you have is gone and a new body appears. It's just that the new body that you appears is slightly different from the previous body, just like a movie where you have, it to you, it appears that it's a continuous change. right? Say the car chase is going on in a movie and then it appears like the car is continuously moving. But what is happening in reality is the entire picture is appearing, it's completely disappearing, goes blank, and a completely new picture appears. But the new picture is slightly different from the previous picture. So it creates the illusion of a motion. So our body also goes transition like that. So now when you extrapolate, so by this, what you're seeing is that, oh, I had a child body in the past, and I'm going to have an old body in the future. So there is a pattern. What is the pattern? The body is changing. What I'm saying, body is changing from childhood to youth to old age. Similarly, after the body dies, I will get a new body, just like 6, 8, 10, 12, next number is 14, right? Because I see a pattern. And you can extrapolate on the other direction also. And because if I trace back, before my youth body, I had a child body. Before that, I had a toddler body. Before that, I had a baby body. But I'm still the same. That means prior to me getting the baby body, I must have some other body, though I don't know. I don't have any recollection of it. But that's, I must have a body because there is a pattern. The fact that you don't have a recollection is a minor point, because how many of you can describe, when you were 5 years old, what you did in a period of 1 year, or any memory that you might have from 5 years of age, or 2 years of age, or 6 months? You have no memories. We don't sometimes even remember what we ate for lunch last week, or the dream that we had last night. We dream every night. So we keep forgetting things, but that doesn't mean you slept last night. You definitely had a lunch a week ago. You were definitely in that body when you were 6 months old, right? Right. So just because you don't have a recollection doesn't mean that you were not there. But if you analyze the pattern, you can extrapolate, and so you can say, I had a body prior to my current body, and I will have a body after that. So that means we are not this body, we are this soul. So Krishna is saying that body is not permanent, it's temporary, and it's constantly changing. Similarly, the body is subjected to happiness and distress. But both happiness and distress, they are temporary. Like the seasons. They come and go, just like we are now approaching the wet season. After that, it will be very cold, right? But if I tell you that, hey, there will always be winter, then you will be disappointed. You'll always be like cold and wet, right? But you know that winter is not going to last. After fall, there will be winter. After winter, there will be spring. Then there will be summer. Similarly, when we are experiencing happiness, we don't get super excited because it's not going to last forever. That's how an intelligent person thinks.
I think it's about balance.
Yeah. So it's not that we don't feel happy when things are happy. But what it means is that we don't let happiness get the good part of ourselves. That means we become completely crazy. Some people, they're like so super excited that they'll lose complete sense. And they think that they have achieved the highest perfection. And similarly, people, they go into extreme depression when things are not favorable. So one should not let that happen also. One should realize that all of this is temporary and it won't last forever, right? So yeah. So body, it does not last forever, but the soul does. And where does the soul lie? Where, the soul actually, what is the symptoms of consciousness? What is the symptom of a soul? Anyone wants to try? What's the symptom of a soul? Someone who is not answered. Devlove. You there?
Could you repeat the question for me?
What is the symptom of the soul? How do you know the soul exists?
Because when someone dies, their body's still there. That means that something left their body.
Yeah, that's one good way to look at it. And then when the soul is present in the body, you feel, you have consciousness. Suppose a small thorn has pricked the sole of your foot. You will feel the pain. right? I don't experience the pain that you are experiencing. That means my consciousness is limited to my body. I can only feel what is happening in my body. Cannot feel what's happening in your body. So consciousness is due to soul, and consciousness pervades the entire body, right? So that which pervades the entire body is the indestructible soul. Okay, so this is the difference between the soul and the body. Any questions on this? No? Okay. So I should have hidden this over here. I wanted to ask if anyone could have guessed, but it's already showing over here. So what you see over here is a human hair, and it's an image of a human hair under an electron microscope. So this is the shaft of the hair, and this is the tip of the hair. So the tip of the hair is about 1 micrometer. Yeah. So this, if you look, this width over here, or maybe here, is 1 micrometer wide. So the scriptures that describe the size of the soul. Does anyone know what is the size of the soul? I don't expect you to know because you have not learned it, but in case
10,000 pieces, and that's one soul.
Yeah, so if you take the tip of the hair and you divide it into 10,000 parts, and you take one part, that one part is the size of the soul. So if the tip of the hair is 1 micrometer, if you divide it by 10,000, that's the size of the soul. So who can tell me? Any mathematicians over here? You can quickly calculate. So it is 1 micrometer is the tip of the hair. What would be the size of the soul divided by 10,000? Let's see who can calculate it. Do you know units, first of all? Do you know units smaller than micrometer? So you have millimeter, which is 1 divided by 1,000, right? A micrometer is 1 divided by 1,000,000. Right.
Prabhuji?
Yeah.
Would it be like 0.0001 micrometer? I don't know.
Yeah, or you can say 0.1 nanometer. So 10,000 has what, 4 zeros? So generally the units that change in the in threes. So as I say, divided by 1,000 is milli, divided by a million is micro. So million has 6 zeros. Now if you add another 3 zeros, so for 10,000 you have 4 zeros. If you add another 3 zeros, so after micro comes nano. I think nano. So nanometer, and then you have one more extra zero. So you divide 1 by 10. So when you divide 1 by 10, it's 0.1. So 0.1 nanometer is approximately the size of the soul. But soul is not matter, so you cannot see it. You cannot see it under electron microscope. Just like air. Can you see air? Can you see the air under microscope? An air particle. You cannot, right? Sound. Can you see sound? Sound you only can hear. You cannot see it. So just because it's tiny doesn't mean that, okay, if I find a better microscope, I will be able to see under a microscope, because for something to be seen, it needs to have the quality of a form. Sound does not have a form. Air does not have a form. So subtler than air is mind. You cannot even see the mind. Subtler than mind is intelligence. You cannot see intelligence. Subtler than intelligence is ego, and subtler than ego is the soul. Okay. So what is this soul? Soul is unborn, never takes birth. Right? The body takes birth, the soul does not take birth. The body dies, the soul never dies. It is ever existing. That means it did not come into being at any point in time. It always existed. So it might appear like an enigma because our experience says that everything has a beginning and an end. Because our experience is that of matter. So all matter, all material things is a beginning and end, but the soul is not material. And so we don't have any experience of that. So it might be very bewildering, but it's eternal, and it's present everywhere. Just like in this air, there are so many microbes, bacteria or viruses. Everyone's worried about viruses right now, and so all these creatures, living entities, all of them have soul. So it's present everywhere. It's unchangeable. The soul does not change. The body changes, right? As I say, the body could be a frog body. Next life, somebody that soul might get some other body, maybe a tiger body, right? So the body could change, and even that body is aging. It's growing. So bodies change. So body is changeable. The soul is not. Is invisible, as I said, just because it's small. You cannot say I can find a better microscope and see it. It's invisible because it does not have a form, so you cannot see it. It's immutable. That means you cannot divide. Just like you say, the tip of the hair I'll take and I'll divide into 10,000 parts. That is possible, but you cannot divide the soul. I said, let me divide the soul into 10 more parts. That's not possible. It's inconceivable because inconceivable means something that we cannot really comprehend fully or understand fully, because our understanding is limited to what we have experienced, and our experiences are with things which have a beginning and end. And the soul, since it doesn't have a beginning or end, it's not easily conceivable. And finally, Krishna tells Arjuna that you cannot cut this soul into parts by any weapon. You cannot burn it by fire. And you cannot make it moistened by water. Anything you put in water, it gets moistened. Just like, if you want to make sprouts, what do? You take the pulses, you soak it in water, and they become, they bulge as they soak in water, and then sprout. But soul is not an element like that which absorbs water. It cannot be burned by fire. You cannot dry it by air. So no matter what kind of weapons you use, so there are all the kind of weapons which are made up of all these 5 elements. Like if you use a sword, it tries to cut things. It's made primarily earth. Atomic weapons, they primarily use heat or fire. Then there are biological weapons or air, there are wind weapons. You don't find so much in the present age, but in Mahabharata time, we used to have description of this. So you have air weapons, and then you have water weapons, right? Sometimes, where there's a riot, the police, the cops, or the defense forces, they use water cannons to basically blast someone off. So soul is not affected by anyone. So basically, Krishna is telling Arjuna, don't worry. His soul does not get affected by any of these elements. That means you cannot use any weapon and cut it. So you should not lament for the death of the body. What happens, when the body dies, the soul will acquire a new body. Just like you have clothes, and what do you do when your clothes get worn out? Right? They're not wearable anymore. They are torn completely. You just get a new pair of clothes. Similarly, when the body is not livable anymore, the soul just acquires a new body. So rather, it's an occasion for celebration, just like you get a new pair of clothes. Do you feel sorry about it, or do you celebrate it? Right? You're happy, I got a new pair of clothes. So Krishna is telling Arjuna, your grandfather is old, right? He is, eventually in due course of time, he will pass away. But when the death happens, he's going to acquire a new body. That doesn't mean, what does this? Does it mean that one should whimsically kill people? Because, hey, I'm just getting him a new body, right? He's going to get a fresh new start, right? So does that mean we go and kill others? Could this be misinterpreted like that? Well, Krishna is saying, just like you're getting a new pair of clothes, he's going to get a new body, right? Why lament? What do you think, Sana? Does Krishna instruct and justify violence over here? You there? Pranav, what do you think? Could we take Krishna's instruction over here as a justification for violence? Indiscriminate killing. Because, maybe their bodies are a little old anyways, and we might as well benefit them by giving them a new body. So maybe it's good that that body is killed.
Just because, like Krishna says that like that soul can't be slain, and also that doesn't mean you need to just kill them, because you still get the sin by killing someone, even if they're kind of a little old and you want to give them a new life. Still, if you kill them, then you get that
Right.
karma of it.
Yeah, that's true. Tulsi Priya, you want to add something?
No, my hand was up from before.
Okay. Yeah, so what it means is that if in the course of execution of your rightful duties, the discharge of one's duties as a Kshatriya, if you have to kill someone, you don't have to shy away. That's what it means. And Kshatriya needs to have the discrimination when to use violence. You try to avoid violence as much as possible. When violence is inevitable, then one should not shy away. Right? That's what it means. And in the course of execution of their duty, if the body is killed, then one should not lament for it, because anyway, you're not, even if that person is your teacher or a grandfather, right? One should not shy away, and you don't have, and your affection towards them is acceptable, but you should know that you're not killing them. You're simply bringing about the change of their bodies. That's what it means. And then finally, I know we are about time, but it's just the last point, so let's go ahead and finish it. And so Krishna takes the other position where he says, well, somebody says, you know what, I don't believe in soul. I don't think that this is the soul. There is anything like soul, right? We are just this body, and this body is just made up of different chemicals. Here, according to science, this is what the composition of the body looks like. It's 62% water and 16% protein. There's 1% carbs and 6% minerals. You have 0.2% sulfur, and you see all this. So like, okay, so this is, in some people, this is what causes the consciousness. This is what brings about the experience of life. Somebody might believe like that. Though Krishna provides very good reasons that why, there is something like soul, and we already discussed that in the previous slide. But Krishna says, even if you believe this, there's no reason to lament. Why? Suppose a child goes to a beach, right, and then they make a sand castle. So earlier it was all sand, all mixed, it's just, you cannot make any difference. But now, they have taken some sand, they mix some water, and then made some bonding material. They put some shells inside, and they create a shape of a castle. The castle will be there for some time. Another wave comes in, a big wave, and it washes everything away. And what happens to all the sand? It again diffuses. Right? So a child might lament, oh, you know what, my castle went away, but the parent is sitting, they don't care, right? Okay, you know what, it was anyway sand to begin with, and finally again merged back to sand. What is the reason for lamentation? Similarly, if you believe that this body is made up of chemicals, then before the body was formed, where was water? Well, water, there's already so much water in the ocean, in the rivers. And if you have 62% in water in your body, that means that water was acquired somehow. Maybe the mother was consuming water, and from mother's body, that water was, became part of the child's body. Similarly, all this oxygen that the mother was breathing was transferred through her blood into the embryo in the womb, right? So all these chemicals were acquired, they were not there. They were out there in the nature. They were just put together. And when the body dies, what happens? It's like recycling. All this. What happens when you recycle? Well, you have a plastic bag and you recycle. Again, turns into petrochemicals, the raw material from which the plastic was made. Before the plastic bag was made, it was in the raw material form, petrochemicals. Do you lament? You lament, oh, my plastic bag, it went away. Oh, it again got diffused into petrochemical. That makes no sense. So Krishna is saying, your lamentation, if you think that body is made up of chemicals, then also there is no need for you to lament. Because what happened is the chemicals, they were not manifested earlier. They existed in their natural state in some other form. They came together to form the body, and then the body dies, it again diffuses and mixes back to the nature. So they actually came back to its original state. So what is the need for lamentation? You ended up where you started. So even if you consider the body as simply a combination of chemicals, there is no reason to lament. So this is the various arguments that Krishna provides to make the point that, you are, first of all, you're not the body, you are the soul. Similarly, your grandparent, your teacher, they are also not the body. And so in discharge of your duties, you should not shy away from executing your duty, just considering the death of the bodies. And even if you don't accept that there is soul, there is no reason for you to lament. So I'll take a pause over here. Any questions or comments before we conclude today's session? Ria? No. Anyone else wants to say something? Okay, no questions.
Bye.
Yeah, somebody had to say something. I heard a voice. I don't know who is it. Want to say something? Okay, so we'll continue with the discussion in the next class. So the second theme of Krishna's argument is, well, you should do your duty. First was you should not lament for the death of the body. The second set of reasons he will provide is another theme that you should execute your duty as a Kshatriya. That should be your primary criteria, not consider anything else. So we'll talk about that next time. Thank you, everybody. Hare Krishna.